Of all the creatures of the earth, man alone can speak. It is by the use of words and the exchange of ideas made possible by words that man has risen up through the ages from the law of the jungle to the laws of civilization. Through words, men have been able to spread wisdom and truth, and the words of such great religious teachers as Buddha and Christ have for centuries guided countless generations of peoples in the ways of virtue and morality. Through words, men have learned how to create democratic government like that of the United States. Words made possible the first Constitution of Japan and the creation of the Japanese Diet. And words enabled men to frame the Charter of the United Nations, an organization devoted to the peace and well-being of mankind on an international scale. Meeting at San Francisco in 1945, in the closing months of the most terrible conflict in history, representatives from countries all over the world sought a way to end for all time the suffering and devastation of war. More than ever before, they now realized that their very survival depended upon men meeting together to discuss their common problems and to arrive at a mutual understanding. Earnestly and tirelessly, they fashioned a charter for the United Nations organization, which was founded upon the principles of peace, freedom, and human welfare that form the basis of all truly democratic government. Embodying the age-old aspirations of mankind for economic and political security, the charter was finally adopted by 51 nations. To translate into action the words of the charter, a temporary headquarters was established. The heart of the United Nations organization is its General Assembly. To the meetings of the Assembly, delegates of member nations bring the views of their countrymen. No matter how large or how small their lands may be, they know that their words and their views will have equal weight with those of other nations in the General Assembly. The delegates speak in many tongues and represent an extraordinarily wide variety of the world's peoples. Some of them hold views which are not acceptable to the majority, but they are entitled to speak them just the same. The member nations of the UN also have widely varying geographical and economic backgrounds. The delegate from Pakistan, for example, represents a vigorous Asiatic country which has only recently gained its independence and whose economy is largely agricultural. The delegate from Great Britain, also representing the democratically expressed will of his fellow countrymen, brings to the General Assembly the problems of a highly industrialized economy. But the voices of Pakistan and of Britain are heard no more nor less than that of the Republic of Haiti, a proud Caribbean country, though small in area and population. Thus, in the town meeting of the world, nations speak to nations, and problems are solved which no single country by itself could solve. Large or small, rich or poor, old or young, each nation's voice and each nation's vote is equal in the General Assembly. And for this reason, the decisions which they make have a profound influence upon the total progress of mankind. In the General Assembly, ideas are continuously exchanged and debated, but the resolutions which the delegates adopt are implemented by other agencies within the United Nations organization. Thus, the words spoken in so many tongues by the nations of the world are transformed into action. The Secretariat of the UN, working directly under the General Assembly, is a permanently established group which administers the daily activities of the World Organization. Some decisions of the General Assembly are acted upon by the Trusteeship Council. In Libya, a former Italian colony in North Africa, as in other countries which have not yet become fully independent, special UN commissions have been helping the people to prepare for national elections and for ultimate sovereignty. The General Assembly and individual nations as well can call upon the International Court of Justice to hear both sides of a dispute between countries and to give its opinion. Located at The Hague in Holland, this high tribunal of the UN is composed of 15 justices whose opinions carry great weight in the chancelleries of the world. Many of the directives of the General Assembly are executed by ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Council of the UN, which coordinates the work of a number of specialized independent agencies. Even nations which are not members of the UN may join these agencies. One is the Food and Agricultural Organization, whose experts are constantly helping to develop and spread newer and better techniques of farming. Another is the World Health Organization, which is carrying on programs aimed at the eradication of disease. Still another is the UN's Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, which works to promote international understanding. Nations like Japan, which are not yet members of the UN, are invited and encouraged to participate in the work of UNESCO. The United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund has undertaken the task of feeding and clothing hundreds of thousands of needy children all over the world. To meet threats of aggression, the General Assembly works closely with the Security Council, whose mission is to maintain world peace. In 1947, the United Nations sent a special commission to Korea to help establish a democratic government. But the flat refusal of the communists to cooperate limited UN action to South Korea. Then, to the Security Council one day in June 1950, came word that South Korea had been invaded by the North Korean communists, and a representative of the Republic of Korea, Dr. John Chung, appeared to report on the situation. The Security Council, after confirming the facts and debating the crisis, voted to issue a ceasefire order, a decisive step made possible because the Soviet Union was boycotting the Council and thus could offer no obstruction. When the North Korean aggressors ignored the order, the UN voted to give armed aid to the South Koreans. 53 of the 59 member nations offered military forces or other support in the struggle to repel the invaders. Some months later, the North Koreans had been driven back to the Manchurian border. Here, the United Nations troops, scrupulously respecting China's frontier, took up guard positions along the Yalu River. But soon, Chinese communist armies, supplied with Soviet equipment, entered the war in support of the invaders. The Security Council now faced a crisis that threatened the whole future of the United Nations organization. A spokesman for Red China, General Wu, came to present to the Council a highly inaccurate report of the events that had taken place. In his attempt to becloud the true facts concerning the intervention of Communist China in Korea, General Wu was aided by the Soviet delegate, who, after a long absence, had returned to the Security Council and was determined to block any further action by the free world in this new crisis. Most of the members of the Security Council were unequivocally in favor of a resolution demanding the withdrawal of communist Chinese troops from Korea. But the delegate of the Soviet Union, exercising the right of veto granted to the 5 major powers by the UN Charter, voted against the resolution, and the work for peace was halted. Fortunately, the General Assembly had foreseen this stalemate. The American Secretary of State had earlier urged the adoption of a resolution based on the UN's Charter, permitting the General Assembly to act in cases affecting world security whenever the Security Council found itself powerless to do so. The delegates of the free nations therefore now assumed rightful jurisdiction in the Korean crisis, and by an overwhelming majority voted to condemn Communist China as an aggressor. The General Assembly thus demonstrated its determination to meet aggression wherever it might occur. Though the struggle in Korea continued, the work for peace was also carried forward. At San Francisco in the summer of 1951, representatives of the nations which had but recently been engaged in a bitter war with Japan were speaking in favor of a peace treaty with their former enemy. Japan was eager to join the family of free nations, but the representative of the Soviet Union objected. While he uttered bland words of peace, he left no doubt that Moscow opposed freedom for Japan. Nevertheless, under the leadership of the American statesmen, who were largely instrumental in framing it, a peace treaty was concluded, with Premier Yoshida signing for Japan. For the Japanese people, the treaty marked the beginning of a new era of independence in which they could at last work together in friendship and equality with the other free peoples of the earth. It also offered the very real hope that Japan would one day join the 9 other nations which have become members of the UN since its charter was written. Then the voice of Japan will be heard among those of the other countries that are striving to bring to reality the enduring peace and the universal freedom, which are the common aspirations of mankind and the final goals of the United Nations.